everyone, and welcome back to Amateur Endeavors, where we live life for the love of it. My name is Laura, and we are doing something a little different today. We're doing a series of projects all in one video for the sole purpose of creating the perfect themed outfit. Last week, we created these shoes. I think they turned out fantastic. They are now my new favorite thing. I love the mountain scene. I love the starscape. I love everything about these. Because I love them so much, we are going to create an entire outfit based around those shoes. So we're going to go from bottom to top. We're starting with the shoes, and then we're moving up to the pants. We're gonna have a jacket that we're gonna do, and then we're gonna have some earrings. But it is all going to be based around these shoes. So I know a themed outfit is not exactly, cool. It's like, it's almost considered cringe, it's almost silly. Base an entire outfit around your new favorite pair of shoes. Like, who are you? What are you doing? But I want to. I think it's going to be fun, I think it's going to be neat, and it gives me the chance to do 3 small projects, one after the other, all for the sole purpose of making an outfit to match the vibe of these shoes. So, we're going to get started. We're probably going to start with our pants, and then we're going to make the jacket, and then we are going to do the earrings. So, come along, let us get started.
Alright, so our first project is going to be these pants, and what we're going to do is we're going to take them and we're going to roll up the cuff and secure it with embroidery. I had accidentally bought these a little too long. I thought this was a brand that went short on me. Turns out it wasn't, and so they've been dragging the floor for a while now. So we're going to fix that and use them for this project. And basically I'm just going to start with a basic back stitch to secure it into place. That's just where you take your needle and you push it through the fabric, and then you go in the direction that you want the stitch to go, and then you back it towards where you originally had your thread start. And that just creates a nice even line, nice even stitches, and it's really a very basic stitch. But once we have our back stitch established and we have the start of it begun, then we're also going to add something a little bit interesting. I'm actually going to be adding leaves in between each back stitch. And essentially the way you do that is that you come up at the end of your back stitch and you make a loop, and then you catch it with thread by going back behind it and pulling it forward. And then after you catch that loop at the length that you want, then you just go back into the fabric and you just make a little tiny stitch to hold it into place at the distance you want. But I'm going to be doing these little leaves every other back stitch. So I've made that one, and now I'm going to put in a back stitch right in front of it, and then I will do another leaf in the opposite direction right after it. But I just kind of continued that all the way around the cuff, and it created this lovely, almost vine-like embroidery on it. And so I did that on this side, and then I also did it on the other cuff. Now the next part that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a fern on the back pocket, and I'm going to use embroidery again, but I'm going to use this kind of interesting technique I saw online one time. But you make one stitch down along the stem of your fern leaf, and then you make a stitch perpendicular to that about halfway down the stitch that you just made. So you basically make a cross. And then you go into the bottom of that stitch, but you catch that horizontal stitch that you made and you pull it down so it goes at an angle. And that creates the leaves for your fern. And it's just really it's not that complicated. It's actually fairly simple once you get the knack of it, but you just continue doing that over and over again. Each vertical stitch, you add a horizontal stitch halfway down, and then you just catch it with the next one. But if you keep doing that, then it will eventually make this almost fern-like leaf pattern, and I just think that it's really, really pretty. Now that I have my first one done, I'm just going to continue adding leaves in different colors and in different shapes and different angles, and I'm just going to use that to make a little fern plant on my back pocket of these jeans. And there we go. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. I love it dearly. And now I'm just going to move on to my final thing. I'm going to take that same pattern. This is a little bit of a better angle, so hopefully you can see a little bit better. But you have just that vertical stitch, and then you take a horizontal one, leaving it a little bit loose so you can catch it. And then you come in at the bottom of that first initial stitch and you just catch that loose horizontal thread. And then pull it tight and you have an angle. But I'm just going to take this across the front pockets of my jeans just to add that one last final embellishment to the front.
Okay, so our next bit is going to be our jacket. Now I have this black hoodie that I had bought to wear to work before realizing because I had a hood on it, I could no longer wear it because of the new dress code. If you know, you know. In the end, it actually made me kind of happy because I saw this picture on Pinterest of someone who took a black hoodie and put star patterns on it. And I think that really just kind of called back to the stars in the shoes, and I'm also gonna see about doing this sort of like tree motif on the back, but I'm honestly not too sure about that. I don't want to overwhelm the stars. I want the stars to be the main focal point. So I might just end up running a couple of trees along the bottom and then make that it. But in order to make this jacket, there are two different ways we could go about it. And I'm going to try one and see if it works, and if it doesn't, we'll move on to option 2. First option is bleach. I have been itching to do a bleach dye project for a while now, so this is the one I would like to do. But I do have fabric paint in case this doesn't work. Black doesn't tend to bleach very well. It has a tendency to turn red or orange because that's the color they use on the fabric initially to give it a sort of base. You don't want to put black on top of white because then it just turns gray. Tendency to like to bleach well, especially if I want to get light to white stars. This probably isn't going to work very well. But that being said, I still would like to give it a try, and if nothing else, it'll give a lighter base that I can put my fabric paint on top of, so that way I'm not just going on over top of black and have to keep on adding paint and paint and paint. But with that being said, let's get started. Now I have 2 different types of bleach with me. I have regular Clorox, and then I also have toilet bowl cleaner. And this was actually based off of a video that I watched previously. I'll link it below. But they tested different types of mediums to do bleach dyes, and they found that if you want shading and if you want more of general shapes, then regular bleach is the way to go. But if you want fine lines, toilet bowl cleaner is actually better because it has more viscosity, it stays in place and doesn't leach into the fabric as much. And so I'm going to be using this for my fine lines and for my stars, and for my tree motif I'm probably going to do more of the actual bleach that'll allow me to get some shading and some more dimension. But the stars I want to be very pointed and very sharp, so we're going to use toilet bowl cleaner on that. The other thing that they tested out on that video was what tools to use to get those fine lines. I didn't want to purchase anything new, so I did not buy that. But what I do have is an old glue container. I cleaned this out, and I think I'm going to use it to do my fine lines because I think that the hole on this will be just the perfect size for me to squeeze out bleach. And I think it will work very well, and if not, then we'll go to plan B. Yeah, but we'll figure it out. It's fine. So without further ado, let's get started.
Alright, now that I have prepped my workstation and laid my hoodie out nice and flat, now I am going to try and use this bleach solution. I didn't really test it before I put it down, and that was probably my downfall. I know you can't really see because it hasn't developed yet, but this stuff is coming out very, very fast, and I'm having to be so gentle to get this out at a steady rate that's not going everywhere. It's like I found that the best way to do it was to just have like no pressure on the bottle, just the pressure of me holding it to force the liquid out. It was much more liquidy than I had initially anticipated. I think the video that I had watched previously used a different brand that was probably a bit thicker, but this is what I had and this is what we're working with, so today we make do. But I'm just going through and I'm adding different tree patterns. Just they're starting to look like ghosts appearing on my jacket. But I'm just going through and I'm adding it all across the back of the jacket. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some just straight up liquid bleach and I'm going to drag it along the bottom to give it a sort of base. And then I'm also going to just take the bleach and flick it a couple of times across the back of the jacket. I wanted this to look like a painting a bit, so I think that's a good added step. Now that we are done with the back, I'm going to move on to the sleeves, and I am going to start with painting out some constellations. Now, I'm a little bit nervous about this because the toilet bowl cleaner was obviously not doing very well on fine lines, so I tried using just the plain bleach, but that wasn't working well either. It was spreading out everywhere. And so I went back in with the toilet bowl cleaner, but again, still not working. So this was a little bit of trial and error and moving around and trying different things. And it turned out okay, but I wasn't 100% happy with it just because the lines spread out everywhere. But hey, what you gonna do? I'm also going to go through on both the sleeves and on the back, and I'm just going to add a whole bunch of dots so that way I can have my sporadic and spread out stars as well as my constellations. With all that done, I'm going to wash it, neutralize it, and make sure it doesn't fall apart. While that is washing, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start on our earrings. Now, I have this idea for earrings. I was at a Ren fair the other day and I saw them all over the place, but I didn't really find any that I truly loved. So we're going to make some of our own. And I've got a lot of materials to work with and a lot of things to use, so I think we have a very good chance of making something really, really cool. But we're going to start with this heavyweight wire. I think this is 20 gauge, and we're going to just make a loop on the end. And this is going to be the start of our earring, the very bottom. And so I'm just using my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to loop it back on itself. Once we have that first loop established, then we're just going to add as many more as we fancy. I am going to be adding 5, but that's a little bit excessive. I love dangly earrings. I love really pretty dramatic earrings, and so my ears are forever fated to sound like wind chimes. But that is perfectly fine with me. But once you have your 5 loops or less established, you're going to curve your wire around into almost this half heart shape with a little bit on the end. And then you're just going to take that end and curl it back in so that way it's not poking into your ear when you wear it. But this creates the shape that's just going to go behind our ear. And you have to make sure that you use 2, though I guess you could I suppose you could just have 1, but 2 is the general number. Now that we have our basic hardware figured out, now it's time to move on to our embellishments, what we're going to hang from our earrings. So I have a couple of different things that I'm going to be working with. I have these beads and rhinestones and loveliness. And then I'm also going to be working with a couple of seed beads, I think they're called. They're just like the really small beads that you can stack on top of each other really well. And I've got them in black, I've got them in white, I have silver, I have green. So we've got a lot to work with, and I'm just going to kind of fiddle around with them, put them together how I like, and then I'm going to attach them to chain to hang off of our earrings. Alright, to begin construction, we're just going to take a jump ring and we're going to hook it into our first charm. I'm going to start with this kind of jewel looking one. I think it's really pretty. I love the teardrop shape. But then we're just going to use that jump ring to attach it to a small bit of chain. I think I have like an inch, maybe inch and a half of chain here, and that's just going to be what our little charm dangles from on this one. But I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do it with all of the little charms I have. I have this one that looks sort of like a leaf. I think that the green color is really pretty and reminds me of the embroidery on our shoes, so I think it'll work well. Next, I'm going to take this long post with a loop on the end, and I'm going to attach our rhinestone, but I'm also going to add some green beads along the top of it just to give us a little bit more color and a little bit different detail into our earrings. It's just going to be a long post with a rhinestone at the end full of pretty green beads. And then next, I'm just going to take some of the same posts, just without a loop on the end. These just have stops on the end. And I'm going to cover those in some beads as well. And I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do a small section because I'm just going to be using this to make a small little charm to hang off the end. So I'll trim it short, curl the ends, and now I have a little charm to hang off of some chain. I'm going to do that in 2 different ways, 2 different colors, and then attach it to chain, and it is oh so pretty, oh so lovely. After that, I just have to use some more jump rings of a smaller size to attach them to the hardware we just made. It's like, and you can do this however you'd like and whatever pattern you'd like, but it just lines up oh so lovely and oh so pretty and lace so nice. I am so happy with these. With one final jump ring and bead to that very final loop, we are done with our earrings.
Alright, so it has developed. I washed it yesterday, I let it dry. This is at the level we're at. Honestly, not bad. Especially the bottom, where we used liquid bleach and then just dragged it up. Not too shabby. This stuff is a little orange, but we expected that. Still, orange is not the color of the fit today. So I am going to be going back in with fabric paint. I have 24 beautiful colors. We will be using probably 4 of them. But I'm going to do white on all of the stars, make sure they're nice and bright. Like my constellations look a little sad, but I think with white in the center of them, it'll just look like a glow. That's the hope anyway. But we're gonna start with the main back, and then we'll go back and do all the white stars and dots and everything. But first we gotta start with our forest scene. Should be good, should be fine.
Alright, here we are back again on our craft table. And now I'm going to start just adding some different paints to the bleach spots that I left behind. I'm going to start with this bright green, and what I'm doing is I'm actually watering it down so that way I don't have as strong a pigment. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to kind of look like a watercolor painting. I just think that would be really cool and really neat, and with how the
I am so happy with this. It was just so fun to make. It's very themed, it's very silly, but it's so awesome. Is it a little themey? Yes. Is it a little extra? Also yes. Will I be wearing each of these individually and as a group at any given time? Also yes. I just love it. I love how it turned out. I love each different piece individually, and I love them all together, and I will wear these dozens of times more. The only one I'm not quite as happy with is probably going to be the jacket. It's a lot more excessive than I really wanted. I like the motif in the back, I like the trees, but the stars just ended up a little too big, and that was mostly because I was trying to cover up where I bleached it. If I could do it over again, I would do the bleach on the trees part. I like how that turned out. It looks almost like a watercolor painting, but for the stars, it just doesn't quite look as well as I would have liked it to. It's just, they're very large, they're very in your face, and they're just not quite what I was looking for. Will I still wear it? Absolutely. But I could do things better next time. All that to say, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I certainly did. But in any case, I hope you join me for my next video, and until then, I hope you live a life full of love. See ya!